is my story. And if I don't tell it, no one else will. This bus driver, he got there before me, and he reported me to the inspectors. So when I stopped, because passengers were getting off there then at that point.
Okay.
And he asked me for my name and number, and I refused to give him because he could see that the bus was full. And he provoked me, as it were, and I started to pull the bus out. He was at the side, and he had to skip away. And he said, he's going to report me. So he reported me, and I was called to the London Transport Court. They had their own court.
Oh,
during those
really?
years. Yes.
What was it called? A court?
Well, more or less, I call it court.
What we would call disciplinary. Disciplinary.
Yeah.
Disciplinary
Tribunal,
processes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like that,
Disciplinary. So I had to go and sit before, I think there was 3 of them, as it were. And the inspector was there, my conductor was there, and they listened to, my, statement I gave. The conductor gave a statement, the inspector, they read it all out. And then the area manager, nice looking chap he was, wearing gold frame glasses, and he looked at me and he stared at me, and he listened to all the
all the evidence
and such like that. He heard, and he looked at me that Friday afternoon, Sister Pat and Donna, and he pointed his finger at me like this here. Mr. Holder, I am dismissing you from this service as from today. I'll tell you something, and it seemed as though I thought more or less the bottom of my barrel is dropped up now. And I started to cry. I felt so terrible. A job that I loved. And I was told by the union rep that was there at the time, I could sort of,
appeal
the decision. I did appeal, but to uphold the decision.
Yeah.
So that I was.
Well, from the time that man had to skip away when you were moving that bus,
the inspector,
it was game over, really.
Okay. You see, so I mean, I was provoked.
Yeah.
There were other times when I was working. Also, I had a transfer from Brixton to Holloway, back to Brixton, and while I was at Holloway, I was reported for an incident on the back of the bus. This was night, and I couldn't see on the back of the bus. And the conductor never said anything to me about a passenger falling off. It wasn't reported to me, but I was blamed for not reporting it. Now, how could you report something that you didn't see?
So what I think he's saying is that some of the practices really that he was having to deal with were really quite discriminatory, weren't they? Really? Certainly unfair. Definitely unfair. Rather, I'm not sure about the discrimination, but certainly unfair.
Yeah.
As we know.
Well, I would say discrimination was definitely in the mix because, I think as a black man, in those times, your voice is not really being heard.
No.
It's not, well, they hear what you're saying, but it's not being taken on board.
No, it's not valued.
It's not valued, is it?
Yeah.
I remember, let me say this here quickly. I remember while I was at Holloway Garage, I was on a 14 bus one Sunday, stopping outside King's Cross, St. Pancras. King's Cross, St. Pancras station. And I waited there my time before I departed, from there going to Putney. All right? And this inspector came around at the side and he started talking to me. And I could hear what he was saying. Okay? The door to get into the cab was sliding doors. You slide from backward to forward in those days, and you get into the cab.
Yeah.
And I was over the busway like this here. I could hear what he's saying. I don't have to look at him. But they need you to look at them eyeball to eyeball. You listen with your eyes and your ears at the same time. You get what I mean? That was the English way of...
well, that's it's a cultural thing, isn't it?
Cultural thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
So therefore, I was told, I was brought up in Barbados, you don't stare at people like that. It sort of give the impression that you're a rude boy.
Yeah.
I was taught like that.
A bit impudent, yeah.
I was taught, talking about myself and behave myself and just listen and don't look. Steer, you're steering.
Yeah.
You're rude. And you will get you know, a bit of a hiding, as it were.
Yeah.
I was brought up like that, different to the English way.
Yeah.
It's a different
You see what I mean?
culture, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it's been interpreted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
You
being
know.
a big man now, you get what I mean? That is instilled in me.
Yeah.
So I carry it out.
Yeah.
See, and the inspector hold on for my jacket, would you believe it, and pull me. I thought he was going to pull me from. Oh, that is provocation.
Well, it's assault.
Of course, it's assault. You see,
It's
now
assault.
those
Really.
things he wouldn't say. You know, well, I did this to this driver. You know what I mean? And then they would write up a report.
Yeah.
And then you would go into the governor, as it were, the chief inspector, like, you know, inside the depot, and he would ask you to sign here. All those things come up against you, your record and such like it. And when they look at this sort of things here, and they look at your record, it was bad. But they don't know the provocation, you know, that this little boy went through here with these people. You see what I mean?
So, Brother Holden, you've told us some of your journey with your whole career in London and some of the barriers you face and the reason that you decided to move to Manchester. Can you just tell us a little bit about Manchester and how you got on there, and did you have any family in Manchester?
Yes, I had family in Manchester. I still have a lot of family in Manchester. You'll be surprised, even though there were some that's already passed away. But I had a cousin in Manchester. You know, his mother was my great aunt, and I was able to you know, obtain his address, if I may put it like that, you know, from my mother.
Okay.
And I wrote and asked him, you know, if I come to Manchester, you know, if I would be able to lodge with him, you know, until I get a job. I'm out of a job now. I lost my job in London Transport, and he understood, and he said, come on.
Okay.
You know, and I arrived at his house. I left Manchester, rather London. It was a Friday night, midnight train at the time. And I arrived at Manchester Piccadilly train station at 6 a.m. this at the morning.
Wow. Long journey.
Long journey at the time. It was steam engines at the time.
2.5 hours,
steam engines at the time.
Okay.
And when I got off the train station at Manchester Piccadilly, I inquired about Wally Range. It was 10 Russell Avenue off Clarendon Road and Wally Range. And I was told to get an 82 bus going to Charlton and get off at the Wally Hotel. And when I got off there, as it were, I asked a chap if he knew about Clarendon Road, Russell Avenue. He said he knew about it. And I had one suitcase then. It had in my luggage what little I was able to bring, you know, from London with me. At the time I left the majority of things there in the room that I rented.
What year was that? Sorry.
That was 1961.
Okay.
I think it was about the month of August, September, somewhere around there. I would plump for September. Because when I arrived here, as it were, you know, it was 2 weeks in Manchester. And then I started working. I started working first at a dairy farm. You know, I was a foreman, as it were. You know, you remember those milk floats?
Yes, I do remember the milk floats.
I remember the small bottles at school.
That's
right. The milk,
because it probably came from there.
But you would remember the milk floats as well, because you'd hear them early in the morning, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I was more or less the foreman there. You know, working
at the dairy.
The dairy, yes. It was from Sunday, and I would be off every Saturday.
Okay.
It was 5 a.m. I had to be at the dairy on mornings. I was in charge of the dairy, the keys, you know. You had the blue tops at the time. You know, the pasteurized milk, the plain milk.
Gold top as well. You used to have the gold top milk.
Yeah, that's right. You had the liquid apple. You had you know,
orange juice.
Orange juice. Those sort of things.
Remember the fresh orange juice?
And you had eggs.
Well,
eggs as well, had cream.
Oh yeah.
Sort of
Can I just say that I was brought up on that pasteurized milk, and it was this sterilized milk.
Well, that's because we didn't have fridges.
We didn't have fridges. Yeah, it's awful.
The sterilized milk was very hot.
Do they still sell sterilized milk? I can't imagine it.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
But we didn't have fridges, did we?
No.
And that was everything else would have gone off.
But I used to work at this dairy, Lancashire Hygienic Dairy. It was in Hume.
Okay.
Near where they built the bull ring after we put down those houses. You remember?
Oh, gosh, Charles Barry Crescent and
that's right.
William Kent Crescent. My dad lived at William Kent.
Yeah. So I worked there for something like about 7 weeks, and the reason why I leave that dairy was because you had some chap there. He knew about the dairy, and he was no longer working there, and he knew his way how to get into the dairy, and he would come in there when the weekend come, and he would steal up to 10 crates of milk.
Really?
Wow.
Sometimes 10 crates of milk he would steal, and the manager would ask me if I knew who was stealing the milk. I said no.
Wow.
But I was told by the manager that I could take a pint of milk every day, but I didn't used to take a pint of milk every day, because I would, if I wanted a pint of milk or a pint of orange juice, I would go and pay for it and make sure that I get the ticket and put it.
The receipt.
And put his ticket on the file.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one day, one of the workers, he was more or less like a carpenter, and he saw me drinking a pint of milk one day, and he said to the manager, "See, he's drinking another pint." The manager said, "No, that chap, he's honest. Leave him alone. He pays for what he wants."
See, reputation.
See what I mean? And that chap, the setup for him. And you know what that chap did? He painted his face black to give the impression that it was a black man, because I was the only black man in that sort of position.
Really?
And I said to the manager one Saturday that I was off, "I'm sorry," his name was Armitage, Irish chap, very nice chap to work with. And I said to him one Saturday, "I'm sorry, but I have another job now with British Railway. So I am leaving." And I got another job with British Railway as a porter at Oxford Road Station on Oxford Street.
Yeah.
A porter. I worked there.
As a porter?
A porter, yes. I worked there. And then I put in for promotion as a shunter in Trafford Park sidings. There were 60 firms. Yeah. It was the largest industrial estate in all of Europe in Trafford Park.
Okay.
During those years.
Okay.
Near
the 60s.
Near Manchester Ship Canal and all
That's
that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was very busy in there. And I worked 3 years outside in the cold in 1962 winter, when we had about 2 weeks of snow and frost and ice on the ground, Sister Pat.
Oh, yeah.
And you're sliding, people break down.
Wow.
Wow. And I was living in Waller Range at the time, and I had a bike to ride to work.
Wow.
It wasn't very far. And I worked there for 3 years outside in the cold. And then what I used to do during my break time, I would slip up in the signal box. It was a class 2 signal box with 64 lever. And the signalman in there at the time, Harold Beach was his name. And he liked me.
All the names.
And he showed me, how to operate the signals and move the punch so that the trains could shift from one line to the next. Just like you're driving a car and you're going around a bend, or you're bearing left or right or something like this here. And he would show me how to work the signal box. And when he's having his break, I would work that signal box. And he asked me if I'm interested in becoming a signalman. And I said yes. He said, "When my inspector come to me, then I'll recommend you to him." And I did get through that sort of way to become a signalman for something like 9 years on British Rail.
Wow.
On the main line. Trains running from, it was Central Station then at the time.
Yeah.
And then when that closed, they put them over to Piccadilly.
That's the old GMX.
Yeah, that's
Central Station.
Now.
Yeah. I can remember getting on a big steam train from Central Station when I was at Vale.
That's right.
To London.
And so therefore, I was on the main line then at Trafford Park Station.
Wow.
That was a class 3 signal box. That's the first I started as a signalman. But I had to go into the signaling school at Victoria Station for 6 weeks to learn to become a signalman. And then I had to go before one of the directors, as it were, to pass out to be a signalman. Because you had something like 272 regulations by way of codes, and you had to know every one.
Wow.
How to put them into operation in case of emergency when it comes to the winter time with fog and such like that sort of thing. They learn you how to work fog block and double block. And,
also,
it's quite a lot. And there's something like 500 rules in a rule book.
Wow.
But you couldn't sort of know every one of them, the most important one. But all the signals, as it were, as a signalman, you had to know them and all those regulations, how to put them into operation.
Wow.
As a signalman. Okay. So I was a signalman for about 9 years on British Rail, and I loved it.
Did you not fancy being a driver?
No, I didn't fancy being a driver, not a train driver, and I don't fancy.
No, okay.
I wanted to be a signalman because you've been a driver in those years. You on these more or less the steam engines.
Right, yeah.
Me inside there would be warm because they had a fireman, and the fireman job was to shovel coal.
So to keep the train going,
from the tandem behind, as it were, to put it into the furnace.
Yeah, that's right.
To keep the steam up, as it were.
Yeah.
Because those steam engines sometimes the travel maybe about 100 miles an hour.
Well, it's really amazing because you're just evoking so many memories in me now, because I can just remember sort of being at Central Station, going to London, but I can remember seeing these men, they would have been white men, but they got off the train and they had sort of like this old rag round the neck, and this little cap, but their faces were full of soot because they would have been dealing with all of that, as they would, because their job was to keep the train going, to shovel the coal in there. Amazing.
Some of those firemen, the train driver train them, to drive the engines, and some of them become drivers as well. But I didn't fancy that. I wanted to be in signal box because in the signal box it was warm. We had coal fires in there, as it were. And so I loved being a signalman. I enjoyed it.
So that's working life in Manchester. So tell me, because, another really important part of your life then became the church, didn't it?
Well, I didn't tell you really before we get to church. I didn't tell you, I leave, British Rail, and I started working on the buses. The 17th of January 1973, when I got on the buses here in Manchester. It was Selneck, South East Lancashire, and North East Cheshire at the time, and quickly they moved over to GMT to call it. It was Greater Manchester Passenger Transport Executive. That's what it was, but they called it GMT for short, as it were, and they had their own logo. And I became a driver, as it were, after conducting for 6 months at Bushfields Road Garage. That's where I started as a conductor there, and then promoted to driver after 6 months. And the driving test here in Manchester, I passed it in 1 week.
Right.
1 week.
Wow.
And it was these Leyland buses with a long gear stick, and you had to double clutch, crash box motors, you call them. You had to double clutch each time you change gear, otherwise you couldn't get your gear in. And that test was pretty stiff, very stiff to pass, but I passed it.
Wow.
And I was a driver here.
Well, you had a zest for learning, didn't you?
Yeah.
One of the things that's threading through this whole thing is his own sort of quest for knowledge and a hunger for continued learning. And we're going to talk about that bit more in your book. But
let me finish this part. Yeah. And then from a driver, I put in for bus inspector. And I got it first time, bus inspector, first time. Wow. And I started in the Northwest. Around Frederick Road, it was Reese and Queens Road. And I tell you something, as a black man, I had a rough time being an inspector.
I was about to say that because just
hold someone in authority. You would have been in authority,
and there were very few. There were very few of them.
Yeah.
So he was one of the ones. So when you see them, I remember seeing you in your uniform, and I can remember seeing Pastor Holden. There was one of the guys whose name I wouldn't know his name.
Marshall. There was Cecil Marshall.
Okay.
As it were.
There was only two that I knew of.
And there was Roy Walters here as well. Roy Walters moved up to the extent, he become depot inspector.
Okay.
Up in the high ranks.
I can remember them with the plastic cap on the, because they used to have these flat hats.
Yeah.
And when it was raining, they used to have this plastic over the top.
Put over the top, yes.
Over those hats. When they used to get on the buses to inspect tickets and stuff like that.
I remember being assaulted by one of the drivers from Queen's Road that one day. He didn't like me to give him instructions. I wasn't there to boss about anybody. That was not my job. I knew the inspectorate job that I was trained for 6 weeks in the school at Hyde Road. I knew it like the back of my hand. It was easy. And when there were certain situations and certain times that you had to put certain regulations into operation, especially when it comes to, as it were, problems along the road, and you had to divert buses and see that they run. You had to look for overhanging trees, a clear passage for the bus, as it were, the height of the bus, and that sort of thing. And sometimes you take censuses, and some of the drivers didn't like you doing this sort of thing, and some of them were against it. And this chap, he was against me, and I knew it, only there and then. But I didn't come. I wasn't a bus inspector to mahal or to give orders to the extent that you do as I say, as it were. I love to work with people and to make them feel happy and good. That they're doing a worthwhile job. I did that job. And I knew what it was all about. Conducting and driving.
Yeah.
Now I am more or less, that was first line status management that that they had here, a supervisor. And they didn't like me as a black man. And that chap, I find out that he didn't like me as a black man giving him orders. And he looked at me and he said, he wasn't taking any orders from me. And he called me up here, like this here, that morning.
What did you do?
What did I do, Pat?
No, I'm asking you.
He took his bus, as it were. I was at, more or less, down in town, outside the Arndale on Cross Street. At the bus station that was there, near to a place called Hanging Ditch, as it were.
Oh yeah, no Hanging Ditch.
And he brought his bus here into the terminal there, as it were, where buses sort of were parked, and they would start from there, their starting point, and they would finish there sometimes, go out in the country. And he should have been up the top, the other side of the Arndale up on High Street. Up that area where there was another inspector up there that was a checking point too as well. And he was supposed to be up there, and I asked him to take his bus up there. The inspector up there was waiting for him, and he didn't like me to give him that instruction. And he said he don't want to hear anything from me, and he was drinking a cup of coffee, I think it was, and he threw the cup of coffee on the ground, and he just rushed across, and he called me like this here. Said he would bash in my face. So I said, why would you do a stupid thing like that to bash in my face? Well, I haven't done you anything.
So can I just ask you a question, Pastor? Can I just ask you a question? By then, were you in the church?
I was in the church, yeah. Right. I was born again.
So that would make the difference to the way you operated. And the way...
It was.
Because I know that for some people that would be shoes heel time.
Yeah,
exactly.
The only thing I did
that would be shoes heel time.
Yeah, the only thing I did to him, Donna, but was to look at him like this here. Just look at him in his eyes. And my mate, the other inspector, Basil, he was a foreigner like myself, and he heard the rumbling outside. And Basil opened the door and he looked at the driver and he said, "Why is doing such a stupid thing?" To the inspector, leave him alone. So he left me alone, and he went and got on his bus. So when I phoned up to the depot to ask them, to suspend him, they didn't. They sweep it under the carpet.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And they never brought myself in him, as it were, like I was brought in the London Transport Court, as it were.
Yeah, the disciplinary process.
At Camberwell Green Garage at the time that Friday, and hear the evidence from his side and my side. But he went into the depot and he gave them a different version. How I spoke to him, how I did speak to him. I just asked him to take his bus up, to the other terminal where the inspector was waiting for him. You see what I mean?
So again, we've got this thing, haven't we, really, of the unfair practices and the discriminatory practices in the workplace.
So I mean, I didn't walk in his street, as it were, where he wanted me. But I was able to see that afterward. It wasn't him. It was someone that had put that into his mind. You get what I mean? As it were, to do such a thing to me, as it were, because I was, I saw myself as a supervisor, as an inspector, to work with people and to make people feel, look, you're doing a worthwhile job. You know what I mean?
But we want to come now to so that's your working life, isn't it, really? The ups and downs, the highs and the lows, of working life in England. Just want to talk to you now about another really important aspect of your life, because really, I know you because you are in church. Okay, that's how I know you. And just want you to talk to me about, church life, how you got there. Talk to me about this book actually is dedicated to your late wife. So I want to pause and sort of think about Sister Doreen, Sister Holder, as we knew her. And I know that this book is dedicated to her. So just a little bit about because I know it's very closely linked with church. So as you sort of talk about life, wonderful life, because one of the things I'm picking up again throughout all of the experiences that you've had, all right, you lost your job in London, you came to Manchester, but what I'm picking up is a joy and a zest for life, as you have spoken about all of the different aspects of your life to date, and picking up the joy and the zest. And in fact, your book is called Life, Wonderful Life. And just want you to tell me a little bit about Sister Doreen first, and then talk, because it's closely linked to the church. Talk to me about church life. Yeah. And we'll talk about the book in a bit.
One of the things that I was happy about, in marrying her, even though I wasn't seen as an outsider, I class myself as an outsider. It was when the Lord Jesus Christ saved me. I landed here the 27th of September. I got married the 28th of September. 4 years after the day I landed here. And the 29th of September, the Lord Jesus Christ saved me.
Wow.
And
September.
September. A very important month.
Yeah. A big month. Big doings. Big doings.
My personal. And the thing about it is, I enjoy my marriage. To be truthful, I enjoy my marriage. I enjoy my family, my children growing up. And I enjoy life.
Tell me about Sister Doreen first, though.
Well, Sister Doreen.
Tell me about Sister Doreen.
Yeah, Sister Doreen, she was a lovely
How did
person.
You meet her?
Yeah. I met her, she came to live on the same building as me, and I did some background checks on her.
Oh, you did?
Due diligence. Due diligence.
Yes, I did some background work on her. She didn't know.
Imagine that.
She didn't know that. I was inquiring because the landlord, he was a Barbadian, and I understand that she was a Barbadian too as well. And I asked him if he knew who she was. And he said yes, he knew the fact.
Stick a pin. The landlord was a Barbadian. So he owned that house.
That's right. And his wife was Jamaican. You get what I mean? And I love her. And the landlord said to me, she's a very nice girl, but she's a widow. Her husband had passed away at the age of 24. She was.
Oh, young widow,
I
very
was
young.
26 then at the time. And then when I sort of let on to her, just shut it up, as it were gradually. So I took it one step at a time. One step at a time, gradually. You don't sort of push everything into introduction. I was taught this year when I introduced myself. I didn't push everything into it. Gradually does it. And I find out that she seemed to be so interested. So I asked her if she would love to be married again, if she ever think about it.
So how long what's the time period between meeting her and asking her to marry? What's the time period there?
6 months. It was 6 months. I didn't want to delay 6 months.
Well, you did all the background checks
Yeah,
anyway, didn't you?
I had to find
And she didn't know.
Yeah, she didn't know. She didn't know. And we got married, the 28th of September 1963, 4 years almost to the date that I landed here in this island.
Wow.
In this country, rather.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And it was a beautiful wedding. And many of the folks from church, the pastor who was the Reverend J. McIntyre at the time, he never attended, but some of the other folks attended.
Mm.
And the first time I met the master ceremonies, it was the Reverend Zed McCrae.
Oh gosh, Zephaniah McCrae.
Zephaniah McCrae at the time.
Wow.
And he was the master ceremonies.
Wow.
And the reception was kept at the very house that we were living at.
Them days used to have all the receptions in people's front room.
I can remember going to weddings.
Weddings at people's front room.
Yeah, people's front room.
And the place was filled, and I invited some of my colleagues, my inspector, at Trafford Park, then where I was working.
Mm-hmm.
I invited him, and he came along, and he asked me about the pudding. He loved it.
The wedding cake.
Wedding cake, and stuff like he loved it, and he loved the curry goat and rice and and the rest of it, that he was there, and such like. He enjoyed the wedding. His name was Walker. He used to live in Pendleton. Very nice chap he was.
Salford area.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And, so the wedding.
The wedding was very good, very nice, lovely. And when I saw her walk, up that aisle, to come, as it were, to be, people call it tying up. It's a marriage.
Mm.
And, the good Lord give me grace and help me to live up to the vows that I made, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, till death us do part. And when Doreen took ill, she was ill for something like approximately 7 years. I used to feel her illness. I used to feel it at times. I used to feel her illness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only her alone. I used to feel it as well. When she passed away, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
I didn't have what it took to put like some men to stand up and to give a tribute. I couldn't do it. I felt so grief. It burdened me. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. Somehow. Say I was weak then at the time. It's all right.
No.
Yeah.
Just vulnerable.
I really love her,
Yeah.
She was a good wife, a good mother to her children. I've never heard her involved in any brawl, that sort of thing in church, And if I give her a pound, it was as good as if I had to give her 100 pounds.
Wow.
She was a sort of wife.
She sounds like the Proverbs 31 woman to me.
My Lord Jesus. I don't know if I could maybe I could to some extent, such qualities of the Proverbs wife.
Oh, I think so. I think you're describing Proverbs 31 to me, sir.
She was a lovely person, Mrs. Doreen. I used to call her Mrs. Doreen.
Yeah.
That was my pet name.
Yeah.
And the only other person that was allowed to call her Mrs. Doreen, there was the late T.E. King.
Okay.
She was beautiful to live with.
Yeah.
She respected me so much, and I love her. I used to tell her, look, don't wait upon me to go to the bank to draw money. Your name is there too as well. in those days you would have the bank card.
Yeah.
The bank book, not the bank card. They had bank books in those days.
Yeah.
I said, look, the book is here. Your name is there too as well. I trusted her. Don't wait till I come home from work, because I used to do sometimes double shift at work.
Well, that you see,
I needed the money.
Well, look, no, hold on a minute, hold on. Let's just think about this. Proverbs 31. Her husband's heart does safely trust.
Yeah.
He'd safely trust her. That's what he says, and that's what you were doing.
I did.
But you know something, I want to kind of just move this on a bit now, because I know that you came to church because of Miss Doreen, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now, when you met Miss Doreen,
she invited me.
She invited you to church.
Yeah.
She was already a Christian. You were not. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that is in the book.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just want you to talk to me, because she invited you to church, didn't she? Yeah. What happened? The first invitation to church, what was your impressions on what happened?
When I first went to church, as it were, even before I got married, she invited me. I sat there and I listened, I didn't make any decision then. I made my decision after I got married, after the Lord Jesus Christ saved me. The very day after I got married, which was the Sunday. The wedding was the Saturday I got saved. The Sunday.
No honeymoon then?
We didn't went on a honeymoon. No honeymoon.
Okay.
No honeymoon.
Okay.
I don't know whether some of the people did they, in those days?
Yeah. I didn't went on no honeymoon. For 24 years after was our honeymoon, for 6 weeks.
Ooh.
We took it in Barbados then. 24 years after.
Oh.
I went back to work. She went back to work. We had no children. It was something like about after 2 years, the first son was born, which he celebrated his 60th birthday just a few days ago.
Wow.
At the time.
Wow. So you gave your heart to the Lord.
Yes.
The day after you got married.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing, but we can't go there for now.
No.
Because time. But you gave your heart and you entered into church life. Talk to me about church life. What happened? What was church like? What did you do?
I felt so happy, to know that I had brethren around me that accepted me in the church, they showed me love.
Yeah.
They were experienced people, the officers,
This is the New Testament Church of God,
that's right. The officers used to come to my house and they would encourage myself and her as two young people. I was 27, she was 25. Yeah, very young. I didn't know to look after a woman. I thought that I knew, but I had to learn.
Yeah.
And many of them, they would invite me to the house, as it were, and they would come to my house and they would help me and her. They would pray with us, the officers during those years, and they would give us words of encouragement.
Like a couple of names. Give me a couple of names that would.
You had, for instance, you had Exhorter Mackenzie, Edgar Mackenzie. He was one. You had Zephaniah McCrae, Pastor McCrae. He was one. Yeah, you had the Lawrences. Those folks. You had Campbell too as well. That was there.
Would you say that these obviously there were significant people in your life?
Yeah.
Did they act as a mentor in a sense to you? Do you think?
Well, to some extent, but I had Pastor McIntyre. He sort of took a liking to me. I've never seen anything like it. He took a liking to me, and he used to take me around with him to evangelize too as well, as far as Southampton.
Yeah, Pastor Jeremiah McIntyre, as he was, Reverend Jeremiah McIntyre, was a very charismatic man.
Yeah.
Very charismatic. We didn't belong to New Testament Church of God, but we all knew and heard, and if ever he came to our church, people were really excited. He was just one of those characters, one of those individuals that really sort of drew people to him, and he carried a fire within him. When he preached, there was a fire within him. He was a trumpet player as well, and he carried a fire within him. So the fact that he was your pastor was a big thing, for us, and we were even part of the church at the time.
And carrying on from this is about when I sit on Sundays in the Webster Street School Hall. We were there at the time. From 1963, and then we moved to Books Bar 1965. I think it was September 1965 when we moved into the building at Books Bar. But when I sit and I listen to the Reverend J. McIntyre preaching and teaching, I used to say within my heart, I would love one day to be able to do like him, to stand there and expound the scriptures, to preach and teach like him. That was in my heart.
Wow.
But the first thing that I was appointed or rather selected to do was ushering in the church, and I loved that. Oh, I loved it, especially on a Saturday evening when it was YPE, Young People's Endeavor.
Oh, gosh.
Then they had family training, our family challenge.
Family challenge on Tuesday evenings. Oh, gosh.
I just enjoyed it. Yeah. And we would go downstairs in the Webster Street School Hall, down in the basement, and we would bring the chairs up, and we would sort of lay them out, in the hall that we used to have service on a Saturday evening, family challenge. And then on a Sunday morning, then we would be back there, 10:30 for Sunday school.
Was that Webster Street?
Webster Street. That's right. And I love that, ushering. And standing at the door and giving, the believers, brethren, members, the tithes envelopes, and some of them used to take it with joy, and some were reluctant and they wouldn't take it.
That's fine. That's people for you. That's people for you.
But I still enjoyed it. You get what I mean?
Yeah. It sounds as though church life was very much a community.
Oh yeah.
It was. I can remember sort of church in those days really when we did a lot of visiting. I don't know. We do visit. It'd be wrong to say we don't visit. It's not true. We do visit. But I think life has taken very different turns now, and so it's done very differently. But I can just remember, going into people's homes, and their home was a room. It was a room. The paraffin heater somewhere in the corner, and the chair. You were sitting on their bed.
Yeah,
that was the chair. Okay, so that was the type of community that there was in the church at the time.
There was, yeah. But I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
Among those fellas, those brethren, you had Sister Lynn Short, and Charlie, visit their homes, and they would come to your homes. Sister Lee, she was a mother, to Doreen and her children and myself as well, and Brother Lee. When Brother Lee passed away, it took me, oh my Lord, to thee. I wept. And I sulked like a little child, stricken when he poured tears. And Sister Lee said to me, "Never mind, good dear." And Doreen too as well. They tried to back me, as it were.
Yeah.
Oh, I wept tears. Myself and Brother Lee were like this here.
Yeah.
I will be at his house, he'll be at mine.
But you, in terms of your church life, you also took on various roles, didn't you? Because I know that you were youth leader at one point, weren't you, or youth director?
District youth director.
District youth director. Please beg your pardon.
And there were 7 churches on the district
at the time.
As
so where were the churches? You had Crewe.
You had Crewe, 40 miles. Liverpool too as well.
Yeah.
Preston.
Yeah.
You had Bolton.
Bolton.
And then it was
Cheetham Hill. Was Cheetham Hill in it then?
Cheetham Hill coming to it too.
Yeah,
afterward,
that's
the early
5.
70s. And you had Oldham.
Oldham, yeah, Pastor Hines,
and you had Longside too as well.
And Longside, Pastor Stevens, of course. Yeah.
So therefore, I enjoyed, I relish it, that Saturday afternoon when I heard, Brother Buckner, he was National Youth Director along with Brother Gordon, Joshua Gordon, at the time, both of them. And he asked the Reverend G.E. Hutchinson if there is anyone here, a brother here, that he would appoint, he would recommend to be district youth director. And he said, Brother Holder. And I said, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
and how long did you do that for, Pastor Holder?
Something like 7 years.
Wow. Gosh. Yeah. And
I did a lot of training. I did a lot of training. I had to go into training myself. And buy certain textbooks, and be trained. And
you did the Exalter's license as well, didn't you?
He recommended me for the Exalter's certificate license. That's and I love those.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm picking up from this is that all through your journey has made you the person that you are. And all through that journey, there's been a desire to learn.
Yeah.
Never stopped, and every job that you've had, you've thoroughly enjoyed it. That's what I've picked up. And you've done it. You've given it 110%.
And it's culminated in him writing this book. Now, I was at that book launch.
Right.
And it was a wonderful, wonderful occasion. I think one of the things that speaks to me, that spoke most to me at that book launch, is all of his children were present.
Yeah.
All of them taking an active part in that event and helping to bring it about and make it happen. All of his children and their partners, their wives, were all part of people that were serving food. It was a wonderful thing to see, Donna. And it actually says something about you, the man, sir, that you wrote this book. And, you've left us with a legacy of your life, the things that have taken place in there, your marriage, your children, your learning, and we really want to thank you so much for the opportunity of being able to listen to you. I want to just ask you to take a stone, sir. I'm going to ask you to do something in a minute. But just before we close, I want to read this poem. This is a poem that someone wrote for Pastor Holder, and she's by the name of Karen Kerr. And this is what it says. Alone you stood on foreign land, with no familiar sight. No more blue sea, no Bajan food, no more golden sand. It can be a bit tearful, actually. So many people have done this.
Yeah, I know.
Our parents did this as well.
Yeah.
Red buses, they go rushing by. No blazing sun, mostly grey sky. Each road you walk, each twist and turn, you will see a lesson learned. Great love will come and lead the way, the path you still walk today. 60 years you've walked in light, praying every day and night. That man that stood on foreign land has made this land his home. The man that chose the path, you will never stand alone. And she wrote that for you. We have a strapline, and that strapline is, this is my story, and if we don't tell it, no one else will. I want you to hold that stone, Pastor Holder, and repeat that for us, that the story that you've told us today is your story.
This is my story, and if I don't tell it, no one else will. I give God thanks for this day, Sister Pat and Donna.
And can I just add, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so rich, and it's a story of courage. It's a story of someone that's come here and made the absolute most of your life. And I think, well, I know it's a testament that that you went through and people like you have gone through. And I think because of your personality and because of who you are, I think that you've been really sort of modest in a way that, because you went through a lot of stuff, an awful lot of stuff, and you rode the storm, and you're here today to to tell that journey. I'm so glad to be here to share, to hear it and share. It's just really touching, and I just think you're a wonderful man. And yeah, what can we say?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me finish by saying, if you don't mind, it is Christ who has made that difference in my life. I look back. That's one of the things that caught me, as it were, and I was so convinced and convicted of writing this autobiography to help someone else. Where my life was and where it is now, there is a vast difference. It is Christ who has made that difference. And to him I give God glory and honor and praise and thanks. So thank you all very much.
Oh, thank you. Amen to that.